In the heart of the Yoruba land, there lived a tortoise named Ajapa, known far and wide for his cunning and cleverness. Though small in size, Ajapa's wit was sharper than the teeth of a crocodile, and his mind, more slippery than the scales of a snake. Ajapa, thinking aloud, the world may see me as just a tortoise, but I know how to turn every situation to my favor. One day, the great king of the land decided to host a grand feast, inviting all the animals from far and wide. The feast would be a celebration like no other, with the finest yam, pounded into soft fufu, and the richest soups, thick with meats and spices. Messenger, to Ajapa, the king invites you, Ajapa, to the feast. But remember, only those who can perform a special task for the king may stay and eat. Ajapa, smirking, a challenge. But who can outsmart Ajapa? I will attend this feast, and I shall eat until my shell is too tight. Ajapa knew that the king's tasks were never easy, but he was not worried. With a twinkle in his eye, Ajapa came up with a plan. He fetched a long, sturdy rope and tied one end to a tree outside his hut. Ajapa, to himself, I shall tell the king that I need to return home to fetch something important. But this rope, it will ensure I find my way back before the feast begins. At the palace, the king welcomed Ajapa and gave him a task. Ajapa, I need you to fetch water from the deepest well in the land. Bring it back before the first star appears in the sky, and you may join the feast. Ajapa, smiling confidently, Your Majesty, consider it done. Ajapa took the rope he had tied to the tree in his village and began to pull himself back home, leaving the palace behind. He raced through the forest, his small legs moving swiftly as he followed the rope's path. Ajapa, laughing to himself, by the time they realize I'm gone, I'll be back, ready to feast. But the king was no fool. As the sun began to set, the king noticed that Ajapa was nowhere to be found. He followed the rope and soon discovered the trick. The king's face darkened with a mix of amusement and anger. King, chuckling, that Ajapa. He thinks he can outsmart me. Let's see if he can outsmart my guards too. Ajapa, now back at his hut, was already enjoying the feast he had prepared for himself when the king's guards arrived. Before Ajapa could even swallow his mouthful of fufu, he was caught. Guard, sternly, Ajapa, the king demands your presence. He has a special place for you at the feast, right in the middle of the courtyard, where all can see. And so, Ajapa was brought back to the palace, not as a guest, but as a lesson to all. Though clever, his trickery had backfired, and instead of feasting, Ajapa became the evening's entertainment. King, with a smile, let this be a lesson to all, wit and cleverness are good, but humility and honesty will always win the day. Ajapa, grumbling, next time, perhaps I'll remember that even the cleverest plans can unravel. And so, Ajapa the tortoise learned that while cleverness can get you far, it is honesty that truly makes a feast worth enjoying. And from that day, Ajapa's tricks became just a little bit kinder, for he had learned that the best way to win is with both wit and a good heart. Thank you for joining us on this adventure with Ajapa. Stay tuned for more tales of wisdom, wit, and lessons learned. Until next time.